Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Seaglass Perspective, a podcast about finding resilience as we weather the storm. I am your host, Chris Nackos, joined as always by my co-host, Vincent Covelli. Vincent,
Hey,
how you
hey.
doing?
I, I'm doing pretty good. I fell asleep on the couch last night, woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning, realized, oh, dang it, I'm gonna have the worst next 2 hours of sleep when I crawl into bed. And then I crawled into bed, woke up, and then realized I was also missing an AirPod for this episode. So we're doing good.
Just
Everything's okay.
cascading problems, cascading problems.
Yes, but
Um,
through resilience, I can't get through it.
yeah, we can survive. We can
Yes.
persist.
How are you, Chris?
Not bad. This is how I know my own age because the idea of falling asleep on the couch, I don't know if I'd be able to get up off of the couch after 6 hours physically because like the
Oh,
back
trust me.
aches, it gets real. Honestly, it really
It
does.
was I had a bunch of cats crawling on me. I had two of my cats like standing on top of me, like, food, give me
Yeah.
food. And I'm like, okay, just let me crawl into bed first. And they got fed an hour later. But I understand.
Yeah.
Nope. I think I'm
No.
approaching that age though, where I'm starting to feel it a little bit. I mean, I know I'm young. I'm young, but I get it.
No.
I'm starting to
The
understand
the
it.
hill is a real thing.
Yes. But
So today, we want to talk. We've been talking a little bit about. We talked last week about depression. We talked the previous week about anxiety, emotions behind that, and kind of we wanted to separate this concept of emotional regression, right? And kind of jumping off of what you were talking about, Vincent, like our emotions tend to build up over time, right? So
yes.
one trigger, another trigger, another trigger, another trigger, another trigger, another, and before we know it, we've had it up to here, right? We're filled to capacity, and we don't have room anymore for anything, and we start to get more emotionally overwhelmed. And once we're at that point, we can regress pretty hard. Sometimes it happens quietly, sometimes it happens in different ways. And kind of one of the things that we've touched on, I think we touched on it in a previous episode, acceptance and commitment therapy,
Hmm.
ACT. It's based off this concept of accepting our emotions for what they are and coexisting with them,
Yep.
right? I'm going to feel what I'm going to feel. Let me embrace it and move through it. When I bring that up to clients, and I don't know kind of if you've had this experience as well, Vincent, you bring that up and people are like, well, what does that actually mean? And you're like, you kind of hit a point where you're like,
Uh,
how do I describe that?
and I think because I've yes, I've certainly run into this already with different clients of they're something that can't be changed in the moment, right? Like let's say there's a I actually just had a client who was dealing with a lot of work related issues, and the only thing that could really cure or fix or whatever word you want to say for it was time, right? You needed time just for the event to go through, and it was going to end on X date, and then once X date came, it was kind of done and over. And he's like, how can I handle this? How do I manage this? And I'm like, I know this kind of sounds like a cop out answer, and it's a lot easier said than done for me to say, but it is really a lot about sitting with this emotion and kind of, I know it sounds cheesy, but to kind of meet it where it's at and kind of shake its hand and say, hi, anxiety, I know you're here, I know you exist, but we have to just live together right now. And it's obviously, to say that is so like, what are you talking about? But it
Yeah.
is true. Like, and you don't really know it, what that is like, until you actually do that, like, and sit there and whether that's in quiet introspection, or you're at the gym and you're hanging out with it, like however that works, like at some point you just live with it.
And we've all done this. Everyone in the world has done this at some point. Like you don't get to your 30s and have never been stressed out. That's not possible,
Yeah.
right? I don't think you make it to 12 and not be stressed out. So like at some point we've all kind of moved through an emotional experience, moved through a stressful situation, a trigger, a problem, interpersonal conflict, relationship drama. Like there have been moments that we usually can look back and go, oh, so like when that happened, that's what you're talking about. And as with most things when it comes to mental health and emotions, like the best way to describe something is in examples and stories,
Yes.
right?
I mean, Oh, and just thinking, because I was even thinking about, anecdotal and stuff like that. Like, like that is how we express, and share feedback and advice and things like that, obviously. And especially, that's why therapists with, due diligence, that's why we utilize self-disclosure and things like that to kind of like
Hmm.
relay that information to a client and say, well, I have gone through this. This is my experience. It really sucked for me, but also at the same time, I kind of was able to handle it in whatever way possible, right? Instead of
Hmm.
saying, do this,
Yeah.
you'll feel better. Like,
And you can find that anywhere, honestly, like
go to
self-help
ChatGPT.
books. ChatGPT will tell you what coping mechanisms are. You can find them online. You can find lists, articles,
Yeah.
YouTube videos, shorts. You can find the information on what to do often. And we're going to come back to this point a little bit farther down the road, because the what to do is always a thing. It's a question you get a lot of,
Yeah.
that I get a lot of. I'm sure you've got a lot of.
Yeah, absolutely.
When we're hitting our threshold, right? Sometimes we're very aware that we're hitting, the top of
Mm-hmm.
the cup's full,
Yep.
right? Sometimes we know we're getting overwhelmed. Sometimes we know we're getting exhausted. We know we're burning out. We can label it, things like that. Sometimes people are completely oblivious to it,
Yep.
right? And the way to tell is based on how we're operating, based on what we're doing. It's if we could take that step back, look in the mirror and go, okay, so what has the past week been like for me? How have I done
Mm-hmm.
what I normally do, right? Am I coping? Things like that. And with that whole experiential thing, the anecdotal thing, my kids have served as a phenomenal reference point for emotional regression. And
Hmm.
when we talk about regression, if you've read about psychology, I'm almost certain that was one of Freud's defense mechanisms. We kind of step back into an earlier age of
Yes.
coping and functioning.
Yes. Like, that's why people suck their thumbs and stuff like that. And not even be funny, but like that is what people will do. They will regress physically and mentally to a
Mhm.
different point of their life to cope. Because,
Yep.
especially with intense trauma, that happens very frequently.
Oh yeah. Well, and even on a day-to-day basis, like, I mean, I don't personally find it awesome because I run hot, but like snuggling up under a blanket with a good book in front of a fire,
Hmm.
right? Like, why
Yeah, that
is
sounds
that such
good.
a peaceful thing? Because what do you do with babies? Just swaddle them, right? There is something to be said for being cocooned up, right?
Yep.
That is technically kind of a version of regression
Yeah.
that is
I mean,
very widely accepted.
even anecdotally, I gotta say, it's funny as we talk about this. I'm thinking about it. Like, one of my love languages is physical touch with me and my girlfriend, right?
Mhm.
And I noticed, even as I self-reflect right now, when I'm anxious, I'm like, "Come here, please hug me."
Yep.
Like, I need that, like that physical touch. But that's a regression, right? Like, I'm
Hmm.
regressing in that moment. It's not anything bad, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm seeking affection from the person I love, but it is like a regression of, I mean, it's obviously very physically different than sucking your thumb, but like the premise is still the same. I'm regressing to an earlier time where maybe I would have sought that affection from my mother, and I'm not going to psychoanalyze myself in a podcast episode, like
Yeah.
shout out Sigmund Freud, but it is like it's something like that, right? And I think most people don't even think about it like that, right? They're just thinking, I'm just
Yeah.
seeking love and affection from my partner. I just so happen
Hmm.
to be anxious.
It's why pet therapy became a thing, because dogs are great at cuddling,
Yeah.
right? It is something that helps us, right? So, like I said, there's all these different ways you can kind of visualize and can conceptualize regression. At the end of the day, it's us stepping back to an earlier phase.
But I think conversely speaking, obviously I've mentioned one component of this, right? One side of it where, obviously, like you had said, with the warm under the covers, warm blankie, book, chocolate, hot chocolate, whatever, like that's a form of regression. And that's more of a, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a peaceful regression, right? Like, you seek peace through that way. But what about the other side of that? When you get angry,
It's
when you get
fun.
explosive, like, the common, I've heard this in sessions with clients, with my personal life, people just say, "Oh, I just bottle it up. I just push it down." Like, And
Yeah.
and I kind of deal with it. I was at the card shop the other night at the wee hours of the night playing with a friend of mine, and we're just talking about life and stuff like that. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm not really good with like talking about my feelings. I kind of just bottle it up and stuff it down." And I'm like, you're saying this to it. Like, I'm your friend here, and I'm not going to therapize you, but you're saying this to a therapist, right?
Hmm.
And he's like, oh yeah, whatever. I mean, like,
It's just what I do.
it's just what I do. And I'm like, I'm not your therapist, so I'm not going to call you out on this, but I get it.
Over the course of my career, I started like a note in my phone where I just would keep quotes that I heard randomly. And for the longest time, I wasn't like I didn't write down where I heard it. So like I have a whole bunch of quotes that I'm just like, I don't even know where that came from. This is one of them. Um, and it's a little off topic, but we'll go with it. So feeling pain is weak, is it? How's that make sense? How can you be strong if you won't heal what's broken? How do you heal without saying where it hurts? I love that one, right? It's this
Man.
idea of if we could just carry on, shoulder all the stress and the pain and the suffering and blah, 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 blah. Like that's a sign of strength and resilience and all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Like there is some truth to it, right? Like
Yeah. Of course.
at different times in our lives, different people in a certain circumstance, like we have an innate kind of amount of resilience where we can just kind of carry, but that's very dependent on context and timing.
Well, and that's resilience theory is a thing, right?
Hmm.
The amount that we can shoulder and the burdens that we can carry is, and our threshold for that is oftentimes linked to the amount of, I don't want to say just trauma, right? Because I think trauma rules everything in our lifetime for the most part, but
Hmm.
trauma is a big component of that. Like, but and also like emotional management and emotional regulation and things like that, right? Like that
Hmm.
is how we do it.
Yeah. And the simple analogy, endurance muscles, right?
Yeah,
My phone doesn't weigh a lot, so I can do this for a long time. I can just hold it in space, right? If you put 7 phones on top of my phone, well, it's going to be a little bit heavier, right? I just cut the amount of time I can hold it up by one
yeah,
seventh, right? So I
sure,
can
yeah.
hold 1 pound up in the air for an hour. I can hold 10 pounds up in the air for 6 minutes, right? So that resilience, again, it's really contextually based. It's timing based. And that concept of I just like stomach the emotion, right? Every emotion that we suppress or repress or deny doesn't disappear,
No,
right?
no,
It
absolutely
sits
not.
somewhere. And once we've had enough of it, right? Whether it's the one emotion that we've been stuffing because of a big stressor or a compilation of a whole bunch of little stressors, like we pop out. And that emotion has to go somewhere. And
Yeah.
usually it's out violently.
Mm-hmm.
And you see this in the various forms, right? In
Yeah.
anger, people become rageful. Anxiety turns into panic. Sadness turns into like complete like depressed mood,
Yeah.
crying for no reason, uncontrollably. What I call the snot bubble
Even
cry. Where yeah, it's a gross analogy, but it works.
I think of the ugly cry, like the
Yeah,
that kind
well,
of
the snot
cry.
bubbles are pretty ugly. Yeah, ugly cry is
but
the better version of that.
but there is, and even these types of things, like, and I guess that is considered physiological as well. But a lot of these things can also manifest physiologically as well, right? I'm sure we've heard time and time again in the mental health field of the correlation of stress it does on the body, on the heart. There's a reason why people are like, man, I'm so achy right here,
Hmm.
and like, but it turns out they've been so stressed that they've been like this the whole
Clenched
time,
up.
like clenched
Hmm.
up, or they wake up with a headache, and turns out stress and cortisol can do that, right? And that's what happens when you repress and you bottle it up. Like these things, once again, don't have a place to go. So either they go right to your mental health or to your physiological health or your physical health, right? And oftentimes both, though.
Yeah, and like as it affects the physical health and we start to see those signs, you also start to see the signs in like usually it's interpersonally in relationships
Mm-hmm.
where people like run out of bandwidth. They run out
Yeah.
of care. Right?
Sure.
There's another phrase for
Yeah.
that. But
No,
like
that's
they run out of care. Like they run out of the ability to support their partner or their family members or things like that. Um, you know, and being able to catch when that's happening
Yep.
in a moment's important. So like for me, one of my barometers is how I operate around my kids. And I know, even though it's my job, right, to help people realize when they're stressed, I don't always catch it myself.
Of course.
And one of my like the things that like wakes me up to it is when I get short-tempered with my kids. When I so I've said I get up a little bit early so I get some downtime in the morning before everyone else wakes up. When that's not enough anymore. And I hear alarms start going off in my kids' rooms and I like audibly sigh.
And it's like,
Like that's usually a sign I'm not,
yeah,
maybe I'm a little stressed right now. Maybe
yeah,
I'm not doing so hot.
for sure. I oftentimes have to watch my internal dialogue in the sense that I will find myself, if I'm more stressed or if I'm more anxious or I'm feeling a little bit more on the downside, I'll pay attention to my internal dialogue of, sometimes like when I'm feeling good, I'm like, let's do this. Let's go outside. Let's, talk to friends, things like that. But, when I'm feeling down and I'm feeling that like reduced bandwidth, that emotional capacity, my battery's just drained. It's like, whatever. I
It's
just
that
don't.
sound.
I, the
The,
I
meh.
often I will often describe this feeling to clients as like bleh. Like you just
Mhm.
feel bleh. Like you wake up in the morning, you have that like sick feeling. Like I don't feel sick, but like it's akin to that. Like just feel gross. Maybe I haven't
Mhm.
taken a shower in a couple days. Like I ate like crap
This,
last night. I had a bunch of candy. My stomach hurts in the morning. Like which I would have been able to do when I was younger, but now even at my age, I can't do it anymore.
nope.
But yeah, it goes to show like we do have warning signs for
Mhm.
our own emotional like reduced bandwidth battery capacity.
Yes.
And it comes in
It's
different
that
ways for everybody.
the intensity of the lethargy, right? Feeling lethargic, feeling slowed up, slowed down, bogged down, right? So like there's all these little like signs that start to point at, hey, I think you're carrying a little too much. The other one, and people don't necessarily notice it. I've noticed that people don't notice it, right? Because I find myself giving this feedback a lot as a therapist is yes, you can. People will hit a point where they just don't know how to cope, quote
Yes.
unquote, right? And I've heard that applied to so many different things. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know how to study. I don't know how to advocate for myself. I don't know how to prep a meal plan. I don't know how to. I've had people tell me I don't know how to clean my apartment,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I know that they know how to do these things, right? Especially
Yes.
if I've been working with them for a while. Like we've done this in session before. We've talked through this situation, this topic, this issue before. You can watch a movie and figure out how to confront people. There's confrontations all the time between characters in movies and things like
Yes.
that. Like we know how to do these things, but we hit a point where we just stop knowing, and we just don't know what to do anymore.
And that's the importance of and I've had clients before who say like, why should I use my support system? Like why do I have to let people into my life like that? But like that is why we have our support system, right? Like it goes right back to my thing with anxiety and wanting to be like hugging my girlfriend, like
Hmm?
because we have such a hard time coping independently that we need to lean on somebody or something. And I say something, please, as a disclaimer, please don't lean on drugs and alcohol
No, no,
in
not terribly
moderation,
helpful.
please. That is your right to have a beer once in a while, whatever else, but don't go drinking a 6 pack or a 12 pack because you're feeling sad and down. We'd rather not
It can't be
you.
a go-to coping mechanism. That's the way I always
No.
describe it.
Yes.
And that's
But
where, like, the social piece of it, I've had people say to me, kind of a little bit like what you said, Vincent, like, why do I have to call people? I shouldn't have to call them. They should know I'm struggling. And I go, well, how would they
they
know?
know.
And they say, well, I stopped calling them. So they should know that that means I'm struggling. I
Takes
said,
two to
well, put
tango.
it all. Could it also mean you're having a rough week and you're busy? Could it mean you're just kind of like burnt out and you just need a week to be quiet? Could it also be read as, oh, they're not interested in reaching out to me?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Takes two to tango, right?
Mm-hmm.
Relationships are essentially transactional.
It
We
is.
both have to put money in the pot, so to speak.
Well,
Right?
and this is going to sound also like, I know transactional gives it such a bad taste in the mouth, but this is also going to probably sound like it's going to leave a bad taste in our mouth. Like, not everybody's for everything in our support system, right? Like, I'm not going to go to my one of my best friends. He's more stoic, I'll say. Doesn't really show his emotions. Like, I don't. But he's a great friend of mine. But I never go to him for my own emotional needs, and it's not because I hate him and he sucks and he doesn't know what to do. Like, but he's just like, that's just not what he's equipped for. So I'll go to somebody else within my support system.
Some people have a very cushiony shoulder to cry on. Some people have like a bony protrusion right there that I go to lean on their shoulder to cry on it, and I get poked in the eye. Like,
And you're crying
that's
even
just
harder.
not who they are.
Yeah.
It's now it's worse. So like, yeah, we kind of hit this point where we say we don't know what to do. What we're actually kind of doing is starting to reject coping mechanisms,
Yep.
right? And I've had people say flat out, I just wish someone would tell me what to do, right? Someone would
Yeah.
carry me through the process,
Yeah.
essentially hold my hand through the process. And what they're really communicating there, what we communicate in that moment is, I'm so overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I can't like bring down my emotional level by myself, right? It's not that we need someone to help us clean our apartment, help us at work, help us do X, Y, or Z. It's, I just need some emotional support here.
And
Right.
that's, and once again, that's why we utilize these supports, right? Because we just need somebody to like tell us nobody can walk us through this life like that, right? But they can't walk us through it, but they can at least be like side by side in a sense. I know that sounds kind of like exactly what I'm saying, not is what it's like, but I think you guys will understand what I mean. Like
the visual example, if I'm carrying 5 boxes into the house, right? Amazon had a big delivery and I got 5 boxes in my hands and they're not all the same size and they're tipping over and stuff like that. I might be able to make it to the kitchen table. But if someone came over and was like, let me grab the ones on top and just grab those 2, I'm getting to the kitchen table a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah.
Right?
For
They
sure.
didn't stop me from having to carry. I don't need them to carry everything. I just need some help
Take some
lightening that load.
And
You
this
know?
is something that kind of has ran through my head as we talk about this component of being emotionally overwhelmed and, kind of feeling stuck like that and saying like, please just carry me through this is like, I've heard this so many times within my career already. It's like people sit on, it's what's called the pity pot, right? You'll feel down, you'll feel out and about, like you'll sit on the pity pot, like, oh, what was me? And that's okay. I tell all my clients, please sit on that pot. It is important because it is important to sit on that pot. So we don't have to be emotionally overwhelmed anymore. We are in that position. It's almost kind of like, you've overloaded an electrical circuit and the breaker popped. Like, you have been at that point where the breaker is now popped and you're like, this is it. I got to step out for a little bit. And you sit on that pot for, I've known people sit on that pot for a couple days, a week. I think maybe like a month is starting to really push it. Generally, but we are supposed to be on that pot, and which also flows back to like, what am I supposed to do with this? What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to get better? I tell clients, you kind of got to sit on that pot. Like, it sucks. Like, you'll get through it. You'll get off that pot at some point, but you're on this pot right now for a reason.
And if you stretch the analogy, this is where it turns into something disgusting, but like, who's sitting on the pot next to you? Sometimes we
I don't
need
wanna
to sit
know.
on the pity pot because we need
Yeah.
to sit and express and process.
Yes.
We need to be in touch with the emotion. We need to feel it. We need to perhaps be consumed by it for a second, for
Sure.
a minute, just to be able to process it out. And the more support we have in doing so, the better. If we can talk it out with someone. And that's one of those things when people say, well, what's the point of therapy? And it's like, well, sometimes the point of me, like my job is just to sit every week and listen to you vent
Yeah.
and bitch and moan and talk about whatever's going on. And people will apologize to me for that. And they're like, I'm sorry,
Oh
I'm so
yeah,
negative. And I'm like, that's what I'm paid to
brother,
do.
this is my job.
Yeah,
Like
like
this is what I'm
this
paid
is
to
why I'm
do,
here. Um,
and I love to do it. But point
yeah.
blank,
Well,
like,
and the fun part is like weeks later when the person's doing better, I can reflect to them like, hey, remember how you like that session on June 10th and what we
yeah,
talked about, and you felt so down, so in the dumps, so overwhelmed, so hopeless, and now here you are in a better spot,
yeah.
right?
You know,
Having moved forward.
it's funny. I'm at this point in my career, in my caseload, and things like that, where I can tell a client, "Hey, remember like a year and a half ago when you felt this and you said this? Look where you're at now."
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Which and all of this, the pity pot, and all of this, kind of leads me as a segue into the next component of what we want to talk about is the emotional experiences acting as like a source of information for us, right, and as an importance of reflection because something that I learned as an intern and as an early LSW at the time was that emotions. I'm going to make a weird analogy because we're definitely not these, but in a sense, we also kind of are. Like, we're like computers in the sense that we take information and we interpret it, right? Computers take binary or whatever coding language you use, Java, C++, Python, all these different things, and interprets it as a program, right? We take emotional experiences and interpret them as information. But we take that in and it's just information.
Mm-hmm.
Like being sad, being angry, being depressed, being anxious, those aren't bad. They're not. But we, of course, we correlate depression with being bad. And of course, is it a pleasurable experience to have? God, no, it's not. But it serves as information for us, right? To
Mm-hmm.
tell us something is going on or to say that, it better informs our decisions. If
Mm-hmm.
if I'm depressed and I notice that, I'm drinking, maybe more alcohol, maybe I'm for those that partake in it in a legal state, maybe I'm smoking more weed, like,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'm isolative, like, what is that information telling me? Like, it is
Mm-hmm.
just information. I could say, oh, this information's fine. I'll just sit on the couch and keep drinking and smoking and isolating forever, whatever. But I can also take that information and interpret those, like that emotional experience as maybe something's off.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe something's wrong here.
In the emotions episode, we threw up an image of in DBT the way you describe emotions. It's this gigantic grid
Yeah.
system. It's got boxes and arrows and all that kind of stuff. When you look at it the first time, your eyes cross. But the easy way to kind of distill all of that is that when we have a trigger, it hits us, and in a split second, we have some kind of emotional reaction and very fast interpretation. And those two kind of happen in parallel. They happen at the same time, right? And then that feeds into what they call our action urges. What is it that we're compelled to do in this moment? And that's where we can try to like manage it and things like that. And then based on what we do in the moment, it'll lead to consequences, which will this then kind of loop back around into the next set of triggers, right? So
Yep.
that idea of, the course of depression, right? Last week we talked about like Siggy caps and all the different signs and symptoms of depression. And rarely does someone sleep too much on a Sunday, like get up at noon, and now they're depressed for the week, right? It doesn't happen that
No.
often,
No.
right? So if they're
Generally not.
feeling a little down, feeling a little exhausted, burnt out, and they oversleep on Sunday, right? If they then continue to repeat those behaviors throughout the week, and we continue to follow that pattern, we will grow gradually more depressed.
Yep.
Because by Friday, we get to look back on the week and go, oh, wow,
Oh.
I worked, came home, and slept all day and did nothing. What a schmuck am I? What a loser am I?
Yeah.
Right? We've
Yep.
now canceled things. We haven't gone to hang out with friends. We haven't done laundry in a week and a half. And
Yep.
I mean, when I was single, I could kind of get away with that. I got 4 kids. Like, I can't
Yeah,
do that
no way.
at this point. So, like, we haven't done laundry, things like that. And now we get to feel guilty about the actions that we've taken. And
Yep.
now on Saturday morning, we wake up and go, well, I've really just punted. I just suck, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
I'm just going to lay here. Right. And how we operate and the consequences of how we operate, like, really just inform our perspectives going forward.
Yes.
And if you get caught in a bad feedback loop,
It's tough
we
to get
just
out. It's tough to break it. And
absolutely.
especially if you're deeply entrenched in that, right? Like, I've met a lot of people who have experienced, chronic depression and chronic anxiety and things like that. And they're kind of like in that feedback loop so often because it's like such a hard thing to break for them.
Hmm.
I don't want to say it like this, but like I've also had people, but I think it is true. They get comfortable, right? It gets comfortable to sit in
Hmm.
that feedback loop. And now once again, that information through that, that reflection of, I felt like, I've been feeling like crap for a week. I'm lazy. I'm whatever you want to call yourself. Like, and they just get comfortable with that instead
Hmm.
of looking at that and saying, oh, man, like maybe something is wrong. Maybe something is kind of like going on here. Maybe I should, maybe do a load of laundry. Maybe I should pick up a article of clothing, whatever. Like instead
Yeah.
of, sitting around like and telling yourself that you're a schmuck half the time when that's not true. Like you're just somebody who's going through it.
And you can kind of like what we were talking about at the end of last episode about like the way to overcome depression is to do the opposite of depression,
Yep.
right? It's the same is true with anxiety, for instance, where like if there's a task that's provoking anxiety, we're kind of coming out of tax season, and that's a perfect example
Sure.
where the number of people I've talked to who've been punting their taxes down the road because they're afraid of what's going to happen. They're afraid of the finances. I've known people who just haven't done taxes in like 7 years.
Yeah.
I've had clients and they're always a little feel awkward telling me that because it sounds bad,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
But they've continued to punt it down the road because they're too anxious to face it. We see the same thing with anger, right? Where a lot of very passive people have a horrible fear of becoming a rage monster, which usually doesn't
Yeah.
happen to someone who's passive. But
Sure.
the vision of that is that person who's just running around spouting off at everyone. That curmudgeon, that like pissed off person. Usually it's an angry old man, right?
Yeah.
That's the vision we get from Up,
Yeah.
that old
Yeah.
guy. If you want to cry,
Well,
watch that
come
movie.
on. Like
Yeah.
he's got his reasons.
Oh no, I empathize with him in the beginning, but then he does become kind of a jerk.
Okay,
But then
fair.
he warms up.
Yeah.
Because he processes his emotions.
True.
But like we get to a point where now we're just pissing everyone off, we're snapping at everyone, and now we're just stuck in that cycle. So like our regression, right? Whatever that comes from, like if anger causes us to be very snippy and irritable, if our anxiety makes us afraid and avoidant, if our sadness makes us shut down and disconnect and isolate, like catching those things tells us, oh, there's something I need to do with this. There's something I
Yeah.
need to look at here. And usually it's like those are the first conversations that we are having with people in therapy. Like the easy question, what brings you to Seaglass? What brings you to my office? And people will describe that pattern, you know?
And even something that I consider too is how we how do I want to express this? The way that we handle these things nowadays as an adult and as, young adults, older adults, middle adults, whatever you want to call yourself, at whatever age range you're listening to this to at. But it kind of goes back to like what we had, jokingly mentioned about Sigmund Freud, right? Like these things, we do these things, we regress back to an earlier time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like what speaking to myself, when I was a kid, if I got in trouble, I would hide in my room. I literally go under the covers, be like, you can't see me, I'm not in trouble. But
Mm-hmm.
nowadays, if I get more anxious or more exhausted, things like that, I isolate as an adult. Like,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, it's a lot different to isolate as a kid, but it's like the same thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm just metaphorically putting a sheet over my head saying, or I don't know, maybe you maybe I'm dating myself as a youngin like this, but there's a meme where a kid has like two plastic spoons over his eyes. He's like, blocking out all the haters, like,
Mm.
but I'm blocking everybody
Yeah,
out.
I don't know that one. I'm too old for that one. But because in my mind, I'm thinking you're not physically putting a Ninja Turtles quilt over your head, comforter.
I would love to. Love
But
to.
it's when I moved into my first apartment, one of the sheets I took was, and this is probably, I hope you get the reference, California raisins. I don't know how many of the listeners out there remember California raisins,
Like,
but
we're talking about the brand California Raisins,
yeah,
right?
they
Like,
had a
yeah.
mascot which was a raisin that had legs and arms and
Yes.
sunglasses. Okay, I
Yes.
had those sheets. Moving into my first apartment in New York, I don't know if I had them on the bed when I met my wife, but I
Wow.
imagine if
That
I
is an
did,
absolute
yeah, it may not
draw,
have gone as
hook, line,
well.
and sinker right there.
Yeah, that's how I got her. That's how I got
And
her.
here you guys are 20 odd years later, just about,
Yeah,
right?
and thank goodness for those California
Thank
raisin
God for.
bed sheets. So yeah, we regress. We kind of go to, even if you don't want to look at it in terms of an earlier age, a younger age, we go to a less complicated, um, oh, what's the word? It starts with an S. Not
Um,
basic, but it'll come to me in 5 minutes.
Serene.
It, like complicated, sophisticated. There we go. A less sophisticated coping mechanism,
Sure.
right? And this, you see it. I mean, I've seen it. I'm sure Vincent, you've seen it in practice. Like you see it in relationships as well, and sometimes it kind of takes a little bit of a different form. But we can regress in our relationships, and usually that regression takes the form of doing what comes more naturally to me.
Hmm.
So one of the ways I'll describe it for people is people lean one of two ways, forward or backwards. If two forward leaning people meet up, two more aggressive people, less passive
No.
people, they're going to butt heads a
Yes.
lot. And that usually doesn't last,
No.
right? More successfully, but still also not healthy, is when you get two backwards leaning people
Yeah.
where they don't tackle problems because no one's stepping into it. No one's talking about things.
It's less conflict forward, but
Mm-hmm.
more like, I know this sounds weird. Like, it's not conflict forward, but it's more conflict backwards, right? In the sense that there's a lot of things that are going to build up throughout that
Mm-hmm.
relationship, and nobody's going to really talk
Yep.
about it because they're too passive. Whereas
And that's where
two,
10 years down the road, both people are very resentful of each other,
yes, yes,
right? More often than not, the successful quote unquote relationships are the ones where you have a forward and a back lean, right?
yeah,
Because the back leaning person gives space for the other person to lean forward, and the forward leaning person never bumps heads, right?
yep,
So typically relationships can kind of work, and ideally we kind of shift back and forth over
yeah.
time. I might be a back lean, but then I become a forward lean when the circumstance
My
arises,
back
things like
might
that.
hurt. I might stand straight.
Yep.
Like,
I start to lean forward a little bit, and you see that in relationships, right? Where the relationship is pretty balanced, and then someone starts to do something not effective and healthy, right?
no,
And the other person starts to shift into a pattern, right? More often than not, the way I hear it in sessions is the more passive person, where their partner might start not coming home on time,
yep,
disappearing, right? Kind of going off the grid a little bit, right? This is all classic stuff here, but like all of a sudden they're more protective of their phone. And I'll say,
yeah.
"Oh, does that make you feel anything?" And the other person will be like, "Yeah, but it's so. I mean, it's everyone's entitled to their privacy. Like
They'd
they need
never
to
do it
blow
to
off
me.
steam. Yeah, right." And I
Hmm.
watch the passivity worsen over the
Yes.
consecutive sessions. Or even if it's not like a cheating thing, if someone's not suspecting something, right? Like they just see their partner start to engage unhealthy behaviors. They start to drink a little bit more. They start to spend more money. They start to gamble. They start to stop doing chores around the house,
Yeah.
taking care of responsibilities. Well, they're stressed. They're having a rough time at work. It's fine. I can pick up the slack. And then 6 months later, They're like, I'm really tired of picking up the slack.
It's interesting. We use this as an example right now. I recently, with maybe this happened a couple months ago, had been working with somebody who had experienced this type of thing where, their partner was kind of feeling a little bit more down. They were picking up more of the slack. And right, in a relationship, that's important, right? It's not always 50-50, it's 70-30, 80-20, whatever. But it can't be like that for months, right? That's how we start to get burnt out in a relationship, and then we start to get resentful, and then we'll emotionally regress our own way with our own coping skills, right? And next thing you know, we have a depressed person and somebody else who was coping in a maybe not so great, amazing way.
Hmm. And that's like the simple kind of way to look at it is the caretaker, caretakee roles, where
Yes.
someone defaults into a caretakee role, where they consume care, and the other person falls into a caretaker role, where they're giving care. And then they come to see a therapist, and I'm sitting across from them going, that doesn't seem like it balances out, does it? And they're, well, it's just easier for me to pick up the slack. It's just easier for me to do X, Y, or Z. They're stressed out, blah, 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 blah. And what's actually happening is these situations are playing out, and the person has to start becoming more aggressive, becoming more confrontational to say, hey, this is not okay.
Yeah.
But because they tend not to be an aggressive, confrontational person, because they tend to be more of a backlean, passive person, they fall farther back into passivity.
Yep.
And they start allowing more and more nonsense.
Well, it's almost like they just give up. Like I've
Yep.
said this. How many times can I say this before? I'm just tired of saying it.
Yeah, it goes nowhere, so why bother?
Yeah, why bother?
I've seen this play out over the course of several relationships. Where I'll have someone sitting across from me saying, well, the last 3 guys I dated fell into this pattern, so I'm just going to keep falling in. I'm attracting that type of person who's going to take advantage of my kind nature. And I say, oh, nay.
Yeah.
You don't attract that person, you just tolerate them really well.
Yeah.
And when things start to get difficult, you fall into that pattern more deeply, more consistently. And that becomes almost like a defining feature of the relationships. Right? So going forward, you can stop that process from happening. You just have to key into when you start backleaning a little too much. The signs that you're getting too passive.
Mm-hmm. Well, and this is, I think as we talk about this, it's like, this is why I can't believe I'm about to say this on a therapy podcast. Isn't this why therapy is so important, though? Right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's why we're here.
totally. But it's why we're here. But, like these are things that we as therapists, as mental health clinicians, LCSWs, LPCs, LECs, LSWs, whatever, LMFATs or LMFTs, whatever, we will provide this feedback, right? Like these are the things that we are trained to notice and to pick apart and say, and even ask, like, are you really comfortable with this? Like your client says, like, I'm just, it's just easier. And
It's fine.
it's fine. And your friend might say, sure, why not? Like, me? Nuh-uh. I'm not going to be abrasive about it, but I'm going to do it in my own way, right?
I had a client who, in one session, I told her, I know you're capable of doing more. She was depressed, really struggling to kind of, attend to ADLs and things like that. And I said, I know you're capable of doing more. Like, at some point you have to kind of kick yourself in the butt a little bit and have that moment where you're just like, you know what, I'm not going to lay in bed for the next 3 hours. I'm going to get up and I'm going to like do laundry, clean up, whatever it is that you wanted to do that day. And the next session, she tells me how she was talking to a friend, and I think this was the exact word, and she goes, my friend said that you're being an enabler, an enableist, something to that effect. And I was like, what? And she goes,
What?
yeah, she said you're not acknowledging enough of why I can't do things.
Oh,
What's
her friend
the word?
said that about you.
About me, right? I'm too much of a there's a word. I can't now. I'm not going to remember the damn word she said. But basically, I was pushing too hard. And I said to her, well, part of why we're talking is because this bothers you, right?
Like,
You
I'm here to
acknowledge,
push
you
you.
identify this depressive pattern, this non-functional pattern, as unhealthy and upsetting to you, right? Every week you tell me it's upsetting you
Yeah.
that you haven't done these things. So I'm pushing you to progress.
Yes.
And that friend is parroting, sometimes reflecting her own thoughts
Well,
of,
and that's
well, it's okay that I shut down because I worked this week and I had a long week, so I don't need to do these things around my house.
it's almost like pot and
I've
kettle.
earned the right to sit. And then on Monday or whatever day of the week we meet, she goes, I really am upset with myself for sitting so much. Right? In the moment, she's validating the regression.
Yeah.
And then when she sits in my office, she's reflecting to me, I hate it. And I'm saying, yeah, it
Yeah,
sucks.
that sucks. Yeah, this
We need to
sucks.
do something different here.
But then it's like, once again, I guess it sometimes just does fall to the, do the thing, right? Like if you sat around on Sunday, like, and you come to me on Monday and say, I hate that I sat around on Sunday doing nothing. And that's been the point of topic for the past 4 or 5 sessions. I'm not going to, and, you, of course, as your client, but like I can imagine you're not going to go and say, it's okay. Like, I mean, on one angle, it is okay, right? Like,
Yeah.
but at the same time, like you come to me on a weekly basis and express that you dislike this experience and you dislike this feeling. So as your therapist, I'm going to say, this obviously is not working.
Mm-hmm.
Something different has to be done. And sometimes people oftentimes also don't like hearing that because it's like, it's not like solution focused in a way, right? Like it is solution focused in the sense that, something different's got to happen. What we got to do, I wish I had some crazy clinical coping skill to tell you that, this will get you up in 5 minutes. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't, you
Yeah,
know?
if I could hand you something, and this is where a lot of people get misconstrue like the purpose of medication, where medication doesn't cure depression, it doesn't fix it or anything like that. It doesn't fix anxiety. It takes the edge off, right?
For
That's the
sure.
way I always describe it. If the mental health field could produce like a piece of paper or a pill that if you read the piece of paper 5 times in a row, forwards and backwards, and then drink a glass of water, you'll cease to be depressed and anxious.
Yeah.
We wouldn't
Do you,
have jobs. That would have been produced, and someone would market it and make good money off of it.
have
In
you,
our society, in our day and
have
age.
you ever heard of something called the Konami code by chance?
So back in the Nintendo days of Contra, up up down down,
Yeah,
left right,
left, right, A, B,
B
A,
A
B.
B A
Oh,
select
B, A,
start.
B, A,
I
select
think
start.
that
Yes.
was on Contra. Yep, that dates back. Yeah,
Like,
if there was a Konami code for life,
yeah, I would, I'd already be doing it myself. Trust me, I'm telling you.
I would never have stress in my own life, let alone
Yes.
anyone else's.
And you wouldn't have
So
to come
yeah,
and see me. But that's
yep.
there is no easy solution to this. There is no cheat code. There is no, this is definitely from my era. Like, there's no action replay that you could plug into your DS or whatever and get cheat codes right off the bat. Or there's no Game Shark. Maybe that's what. And for
Yeah,
like, there's no
Game
Game
Shark.
Shark. Yeah, and Game Genie. Man, I remember bricking my plenty of games that way on my PS2. But the point being in all this is that there is no one easy solution to a lot of this, right? And there's no one easy solution to even just getting up and doing the thing, right? When we say do the opposite of depression, it's very I know I feel like I'm a broken record when I talk a lot about this, but it's like there is no one easy solution. There is no one specific coping skill. There is no like coping skills are very good for in the moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
For instance, with anxiety, if you're experiencing a panic attack, I actually just found this on my computer the other day. The massive list of DBT skills that I have.
Mm-hmm.
Like I actually found it in your office too, like the Kaiser Permanente thing. Like
Yeah,
I'll
the
go through the
binder.
DBT list and give you a coping skill. That's fine. Like we do box breathing, we can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can do colors of the rainbow. We can do grounding techniques, progressive muscle relaxation. I could go on and on and on. But it doesn't fix the overarching component of this, right? And that's where a lot of therapy comes in. That's where a lot of
Yep.
active self-care comes in. And I know self-care is a buzzword in of itself, but the going out and seeing your friends, going to the gym, taking a walk. God, it is 80 degrees out today. I'm going to be, I'm in, professional attire right now. Like, after this, I'm taking this off. I'm wearing a sweatshirt and some shorts, and I'm taking a walk. Like, as simple as that. Like, and that's a coping skill in of itself too, but not the magic recipe, right?
Yeah. And you can't throw a pile of mozzarella on a pan, stick it in an oven, and call it pizza, right? Like, a good pizza has many different ingredients, many different components. Like, I'm a meat lovers fan, so you got to have the pepperoni, the meatballs, the sausage. Like, you have to have all that stuff on there. And I'm sorry, but you have to be in New York or New Jersey and have the bread that is, I guess, because of the water that we have.
It's the water. I was going to say, it's the water.
Much better. Yep. You need all the ingredients to make a pizza, to make a good pizza.
Yep.
And just like that, like, we need all of these different coping mechanisms, and we need to be using them on an ongoing basis to overcome. And as we said earlier, one of the flags that we need to see, and we need to heed the warning that they carry, is when we start to regress. If we're noticing that we're regressing, either by, sometimes very blatantly kind of tantruming and stuff like that. As adults, we absolutely tantrum. If we're noticing that we're engaging some old patterns, old behaviors that we've put in the past or we thought we've left in the past, if we're going to less sophisticated coping mechanisms, that needs to kind of alert us that there's something going on here that I probably need to, at the very least, like, be introspective about, but more beneficially, talk to someone about. Be that a professional or just a friend.
Well, and I know we're about to wrap up, so this will be the last thing I'll kind of mention on this is, routing back to my example of us being kind of like computers and taking these emotions as just information, right? There's no, you feel sad. It is obviously incredibly correlative that you're going to feel bad about yourself if you're depressed, right? But that is we don't have to do that. We do not have to think that way. It is inherent sometimes with depression, but a component of getting out of that is taking this as that information and saying, what is going on in my life right now, stress-wise, personal, work, relationships, whatever have you, or maybe the state of the world, whatever. What is going on right now in my world that is almost exacerbating
this
some
feeling.
Of these things, triggering these feelings, right? And we get to sit with that in our introspection and say, maybe I am regressing a little bit. Maybe I am, having one too many drinks because maybe in college I drank a bunch and that's how I knew how to cope with a bad breakup. Like, and 10 years later, I'm feeling more stressed and I just realized I downed a 6-pack of Coors Light in 2 days. Like, that could be a lot.
This is where the dated reference of Bridget Jones's Diary, walking around her apartment singing "All on My Own" with a box of Chinese food. Like, the moment you're doing that, you're handling the breakup not effectively.
If you're eating a tub of ice cream, eating a tub of ice cream in the shower and you come out of the shower still sticky from all the ice cream and you didn't even take a shower, that's an issue. We know
that's a bad sign.
That's a bad sign.
So as always, just the overarching message, just be insightful, like, be reflective, like, catch yourself when you're engaged in some of these behaviors, these patterns, and ask yourself why and what do I need to be doing differently. The other thing
might be hard truths.
And sometimes as a therapist, all we're doing is holding up a mirror and just phrasing it differently. So,
and we do it without judgment.
Yes. And even if it sounds like we're judging it when we say that's not healthy, technically it's a judgment, but it's not in the same way as your mother might judge it. So thank you guys for joining us for another episode of the Seaglass Perspective. Please like and subscribe to the channel. That way you can continue to get all of this phenomenal feedback and knowledge and banter and insights and dated references on an ongoing basis. So once again, I'm Chris Nackos, joined by my co-host Vincent Covelli, and we want to thank you. We'll see you guys next week.
Yep, we'll see everybody on the next episode. Take care, everyone.